So, I mean, Dougie, journeys first. I mean, 61 is your first IMDb entry as a clapper loader. I'm sure
Really?
you were...
Before that.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Anyway,
How did you
an
get
aging
in?
juvenile,
How did
so
you get in, and what impelled you into this
well, Rank,
industry?
I started at Rank Pinewood as a trainee. There was probably a few here, maybe. Robin Vidging was one, I think Ken Coles was another, but permanent staff at Pinewood. We did the 3 years course. I spent 5 years before leaving and going freelance, yeah. So we spent a lot of time on, which I did, on rostrum cameras and doing animation to stop frame photography as an assistant team maker, basically, with these guys, and then going to more live action stuff, finally at Pinewood when there was an opening, but also special effects and a year at Rank Lab. So it was quite a good grounding, you know, and I enjoyed also working, on the set, which, you know, again, but more interested in the mechanics of cameras, so I was always with Jack Ashworth, the mechanics, seeing how the cameras are broken down and how they all went together again. So, you know, I had a pretty overall sort of well-rounded knowledge of practically the process as it was then, to finally launch myself into the big world, you know, with others in a competitive sort of way. So I've been freelance, yes.
Okay. Yeah.
But after 5 years, I think Rank was a good course then, you know, it was.
So you actually had an education almost?
Well, it was basically, we were staff, you know, it was a four-wall situation at Pinewood, so we had 5 resident cameramen, I think camera assistants, operators, and second assistants, yeah. So it was good. I mean, the time I went round to do Barry Lyndon, I'd always spent about 15 years as an assistant cameraman. So I've been in camera a long, long time, you know.
Yeah.
And I learned how to put cameras together, and I knew all about taking the movement out of a big shot. And I think that's what impressed Stanley most, that I could look after his equipment as well as service it, maintain it, and do a bit of focus now and again. The focus, I thought, was about 10% of the work with him. You know, the rest was just getting the answers right and staying calm and keeping his equipment going, you know, because it was all his own personal equipment. So that was quite interesting, and getting paid very little money for going back to school, really, again, you know, which Barry Lyndon was a kind of lesson again in how to work, you know, other developments creatively and building on something new and astonishingly different, which he always seemed to label. All his work was always, he wanted people to come out to say how they do that, how they do this. That was Stanley's love. He was, you know, absolutely devoted to technical stuff and things like that. So it expanded one's knowledge, really, in addition to what I'd already gained.
And when did you get in with Johnny Alcott then, John Alcott?
Well, John Alcott, we were together at Rank because he was the resident camera assistant there, and his father was Arthur. He was studio controller. So I knew John even back that far. But it wasn't, I don't think, until Barry Lyndon that we actually got to work together. I did commercials with John, quite a few. And he was, you know, they called him the Prince of Darkness, but it was always a tough workout with him because you've never had any working flat out and sort of on the, you know, the toe end of the wedge of exposure, so there was very little light with John. So you always had to crack on and get it sharp, which I found rather difficult sometimes. And they got too much for me, and I thought I'd better move up, you know, to operate or do something like that. And lighting, But also, you know, it's, anyway. Yeah, that's basically the background.
So, in your focus pulling days, you probably had the most difficult job ever, pulling on a 35, 50 mil, wasn't it? A 50 mil.
Which one, Barry Lyndon?
0.7.
Yeah, I know.
Lens.
Yeah.
The stories around that are kind of fairly infamous, aren't they? How that all came about. And how you managed to keep things sharp on that. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it's a lot to tell about that, really. I'm afraid it does go back a long way because these lenses were never used to make, you know, sort of, they were mostly shot for the Apollo moon landing program and deep space photography. So I think Stanley's connections with NASA were made through, I think, 2001. And then he was keen to do a picture, I think, between films. And he wanted to shoot with no artificial light really, and do some candlelight stuff, basically. Which these lenses, presumably from the speed they were, had never been used before cinematically. So he got them, he bought 4. I think 4 they gave him, actually. I think he bought anything. He was always given stuff, Stanley. And they were remounted finally, because they were, I think they were shot with Hasselblads. They did compost shutters in them. They were totally unuser-friendly as far as film work is concerned. And, but, you know, he got cameras through Haskell Wexler. I put him onto Ed DeGiulio at Cinema Products, who provided the camera for it, which would only fit basically a BNC, because you had to take out, I think, the variable shutter and also the on the camera, as well as taking out the compost shutter on the lens, because they had electronic shutters on the lenses, exactly, which they had to remove. We had to remove them, Ed DeGiulio, that is, and readapt them to fit the BNC finally, you know. But that took some time to do, and of course they were never calibrated. So I got the job of that finally, which when he sent the equipment back to us before Barry Lyndon, I had to spend a lot of time rescaling or scaling these lenses, because if anybody knows anything about Cox's optics, because he was a nut, Stanley, for formulas and technical side of things, and if you divide the the formula was, if you divide the distance into circular confusion plus the f-stop over the lens into it, divided into the formula, you end up with a very small depth of field. If you can work it out, there is a formula for it, which I can't recall offhand.
And obviously it gets...
And it gets, yes, it does. So at 5 feet, I mean, it was literally plus or minus the square root of Suite FA. We had nothing there at all at 5 feet. So I knew I was on a flogging for nothing with this lot, you know. To use it user-friendly took some time to adjust to it. But a lot of work was done with Ed DeGiulio. I don't know anybody ever heard of Cinema Products, but Ed did a lot of work with the camera. This is LA.
The cameras had no reflex.
Not at all. No,
or anything. No. So you were kind of technically.
There were no mirrors. I mean, we had a BL as well, but the early BLs to shoot conventional stuff, which was shot exterior, which you'll see, which was rather pretty. All of it's rather nice. And but Lou Bogue was the gaffer on the picture, and I remember we put a lot of lights for the candlelight stuff, in addition to working, at these very low apertures. It was good to get maybe some reflected light in there too, and I think Lou was instrumental in many of these stately homes. When you see the candlelight stuff, of putting reflectors above the candelabras and things, so not only did it protect the ceilings of these rather splendid stately homes, it also provided a little bit of ambience, so some bounce light coming down. So that was basically the fill for the scenes. And I think John worked roughly around those sort of key of 3-foot candles with them, leaving the face and flesh tones more like 3 stops overexposed, and the fill was about a 1 stop underexposed. So the fill was half a foot candle, and the fill was probably, 3-foot candles. So very difficult to see anything through the camera.
Yes.
It was, yes. Most cameras use optical systems.
100 ASA stop?
It was 100 ASA, yes, 5254. A little before the 5217, I think, came out soon after, which was finer grains slightly. So we didn't need any diffusion. The candles themselves provided a little bit of ambience in terms of the grain, because the structure of the film was such that it did provide an atmosphere of its own. And the quality of these lenses, wide open, was very early 18th century sort of portraiture looks, you know what I mean? The pastel shades and what's that, and the beauty of the lenses themselves just really created its own look. And he was very persisted in continuing to use these lenses for these interiors, you know. So we could have used the Angelo or I think Panavision had a T2.1, which was still a stop slower, but they had nothing like the quality, I don't think, of the Zeiss 7.0s, you know. So yes, they were used incredibly. I think we got it right in the end. I remember we used to operate a lot himself, saying to me, "I hope you're going to get this in focus, Doug," you know. So we went, "No, we'll be," because we never saw anything. There was no, you know, director's aids in those days, no video assist. And so we didn't know till next day if it was going to be any good or not. I mean, I didn't mind that, because I think the front end was okay, because I could control that with the lenses I scaled. So I knew that when you put these lenses into the camera, it's literally within about 4 millimeters of the film. So we couldn't get that close to the film. They had to sort of shiv out about quite a bit of the aperture plate to get the film, you know, the lenses back into the required distance of 4 millimeters.
Extraordinary,
which is actually about 25.4 microns. It was so deep. But as you know, with the BNC, you have to, a certain amount of latitude has to be there in order to swing the camera into an optical position before it can be then applied to its shooting position. So that
you had a swing-over system.
So we had a swing-over system, which is still very much all it was for those days. I mean, you know, this is but the BL had just come out. I think we had a reflex. And there's always a amount of latitude in there, so we had to tighten it up as much as we could, so that he could still track the camera over to look in it. And then when it was swung back into the shooting position, this bloody great 50 mil, which was the size of that, with a huge flange depth of probably 50 millimeter. I think it was 52.1 millimeter, same as the BNC depth. Had to seat right into the film, and that was done by pushing it all the way in and then coming out one revolution. And but prior to this, I had to clock the depth with a micrometer to make sure it was plus or minus nothing. It was absolutely zero. The depth of field was zero at the back, the rear end. It had to be. Had to measure that with a clock micrometer.
Was that after the swing over?
After you swung to the position, you would then put the lens in. Whack it after. Checking the depth is spot on, because you take again the slack out of the L plate and the rack over system to make sure it's tied into the film, and make sure the camera is always level, because if it tipped down or up, there's always that little bit of latitude again there, because you're talking about you know 002, literally about a thou at the back, so it had to be tolerant. There was no tolerance at all.
Well,
and when that was done,
that level of size of equipment. In those days.
It was a monster. It's an old boat anchor, you know, the BNC, but it kept running.
I did do one thing on a swing-over. Wow.
Yes, so anyway, we scaled those, and there was obviously problems with actors wanted to move around a bit, and Ryan O'Neill was probably better off keeping still, because he had problems remembering his lines and hitting marks anyway, so we sat him down, which helped a little bit. But I mean, Kubrick had again, you know, mastered the idea of a craft of. It was an image, a joy for each eye to observe when we first saw the dailies. We were just blown away when it was right. It was just a collection of an amazing collection of images ever captured on a single piece of celluloid to us at the time that I recall.
Absolutely stunning.
And I've now seen it since a few times, and once I think. Again, since we showed it in Ireland last year at the Dublin Film Festival, because a lot of it was made there, and it was a very good copy. Nothing remastered, nothing digitized, just the original copy, but kept restored. Looked good. I didn't want it shown digitally. You know, I wanted to see it the way it was, and it stands up still, I think, cinematically as one of the, to me, you know,
yes,
anyway,
the last time I saw
as one of those iconic-looking movies.
But
I wouldn't want to go through it again, actually. I wouldn't tell you it.
You wouldn't be allowed to go through it.
I don't think I'd be able to do it.
You wouldn't be allowed. I don't think anybody would pay you to do that. They couldn't afford it. Not that. The amount of time. I mean, how long a period of shoot was that?
Well, I don't think his films are much less than 27 weeks. This must have gone double that. I was on it. I think we were shooting about a year.
And that was all in England, wasn't it? 'Cause
mostly England and Ireland. There was a very nice, a lot of it shot in Ireland. Most of the battle stuff was shot in Ireland. That wasn't.
And you got Stanley Kubrick over to Ireland?
We started there. The idea was to shoot it all there. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Subsequent events led to the fact he had to make a hasty departure, but we'd already got most of what we went there to get. Powers Court and Dublin Castle interiors were shot then, all the battle stuff, which was quite interesting. Yeah. But most interiors were then, we shut down hiatus and we came back to the UK and then kept a few of us on. I think it was a unit of about 320 at the time. This is Stanley wanted to shoot 9 people for 9 weeks.
Right.
And it was a lot of people on the payroll towards the end. So I think it would take. So we resumed about 3 months later in London, England, all around Petsworth House, Wilton House, and of course Longleat and places like that. So the grand stately homes, most of those interiors were shot there. Yeah. And the night candle stuff, we did do some in Dublin Castle, which I think were the first ones we did. Yes, but all in all, it was about a year, I think, generally, before we... Right. And a lot of second unit, which I stayed on and shot after it was over, too, which I kept there for another 3 months.
Was that the travelling?
Travelling stuff,
yeah. Okay. So that was Barry Lyndon and Focus, and amazing. It must have been an amazing adventure. And then did you quite rapidly move on from Focus pulling up to operating after that?
No, I think I stayed for a while. I think, spent a lot of time in the camera department those days, but we were slow to move on. Yeah. I think I waited until I operated on about 3 pictures. I think Plenty, Highlander, the Highlander 1, and King David, which I did.
That was
first unit operator.
With Russell Mulcahy.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I did a few things with Russell.
Did you?
But I didn't get on that.
Did you do the Duran commercial, the one they shot? Duran?
I did the one on the beach and
did you?
The early Ultravox, Vienna.
I did Wild Boy with him, Duran, which I shot for him. Yeah. But I operated for him on Russell because Jerry Fisher shot Highlander.
Rio was the famous one I did.
Yes, he's lovely.
Yeah, he was very interesting to work with.
Always fascinating.
Very clever guy.
Fascinating. But Highlander was quite a well shot film, I thought, too. Jerry got...
You had Jerry Fisher as...
Jerry Fisher was a DP, yes. Yeah. And he got the Best Camera Operations Award.
Okay.
I thought I was the operator, Jerry. He still got the bloody trophy on his mantelpiece when I last saw him.
Perhaps he thought he directed you.
I think we had it all on the Luma crane. The Luma was a good crane. We enjoyed that immensely. But Russell was very innovative. It's amazing how you create stuff. I mean, it's like with Stanley. You do everything in camera, and all the exteriors, as you'll see, were beautifully shot too. On the exterior. I mean, John used nets, brown nets. Christian Dior. There were special brown nets we got, and he always worked with the low-con filter, Tiffin low-con. To give it that sort of softness, softness isn't the word, but it's something which you can't explain really. We tried to do it digitally, and I worked with Lou last year in Ukraine, and we shot with the same candles. They're supplied for the BBC Television Costume Drama Department. I think the BBC still keep them. Gavin, I think Finney might have managed to use the same ones. I don't know, Gavin, did you?
Like candles.
The candle lights, the triple wick ones. They were bright. I mean, they were. Yeah, but these weren't user-friendly in terms of they gave off a lot of smoke, which people used to, drop down, I think the prop man passed out one day. He'd been trying to keep the candles at the consistent continuity level. He did. It was Joe Teager's brother. It sapped up the atmosphere, but it does give its own hue. It's interesting that... and that's what we got when we shot digital. Lou and I did this thing on the Alexa, which I think that smoke creates something like the grain of film. But it's noise, but at the same time it works.
Little atmosphere.
Yeah. So the atmosphere works. The flame gives off quite a lot of light. To be honest with you. It does. Yeah.
I think the Alexa on the candle light I find always has a little bit of a haze around it, a glow that seems to be part of it. I'm sure Gavin knows that one.
Yes, we didn't use any diffusion, Gavin, on candles for Barry. I don't think we did, because it did create its own atmosphere anyway. But you don't give a lot of smoke, and you have to clear the place out every 5 minutes because the actors are dying. They can't breathe. But the bigger areas, they were wonderful. I used the lens since, because Joe Lester Dunton has a camera which will take the 7.0 lenses, which I think John Buckley knows a bit about. And I went to Hatfield House a couple of years ago and we did a test there with a chandelier with the same 50mm lens that we had on Barry Lyndon.
Okay.
And I think Lester's got a couple of them. And it was amazing what they produced. It didn't need film, it had some extra light to it, but you could see the whole of the banquet hall lit by 4 candles. It was amazing. In the darkness as well, there was always something there. And I always think, and Stanley's always said that the real art stuff is mystery and beauty, but you've got to see into the mystery. You can't have it clogged up. You know, this thing about Brandon, you did see the middle distance. There was always something penetrating the negative, getting you in some sort of image, searching for something which you had to provide, you know. A lot of digital stuff, it does get blocked somewhere with the blacks, and you're not seeing so much detail into that area. I think it matters, it does.
And I think part of it is to do with, in a sense, recognizing when it's good, when it's right, when it's nice, when it's how you want it to be.
Yes.
And working away at it until, you know, with whatever technique you're using, you have to find one that reflects what you want.
Yes, exactly.
And that's why,
And remember, these were all 50s. So what he wanted was a set. He said he can't make everything on one lens. 50 is always one lens that seemed to be the fastest. Again, you see, he wasn't happy with that, Kubrick. And finally, we got a projector lens, I think they used for adjusting screen size and short throws in theaters, shooting anamorphic to the size they want to fill the screen, aspect ratio. So it's called a Cole Morgan compendium lens, which we managed to screw to the front of a 50. Right? I say we, I didn't, but it was adapted to accept this appendage, right, which is another piece of glass, which again made the lens, unbearably long, but it never lost not any, there was no light loss whatsoever through these amazing lenses, these compendium lenses. So it effectively gave us, from a 50, it gave us a 36.5. So we had a wider angle. And if you turned it round and shoved it on the other way around, we had a 75. So with 2 lenses, we had 3 focal lengths, you see.
Right.
Then he wasn't happy with that. And then there's a Dimension 150, which gave us a 25mm. Which was
and was all that still shooting on film on the original camera?
Yes, indeed. Yes.
It should, in theory, be possible to do this on the digital camera, shouldn't it?
Well, I think so. I don't know.
We ought to get the hacksaw out on one of the Alexas someday and see whether we can get the lens close enough to...
You've got to get it right back out there, so, so it's seated correctly. The big mystery with that was actually making sure it was right at the back.
Yes.
Because if the flange depth wasn't there, you had no image whatsoever. It was just ectoplasm, really.
Yes.
So that had to be clocked, set exactly. And when it was in swung over position, it was shooting, really. And then the bit up the front was my bit, so I had to then, But that was the easy part in a way. Because we had the closed circuit idea of providing an image 90 degrees to the taking lens of the principal camera. So I had an image, a profile image, like a view. The camera's here, video camera view there, over which monitored a small picture above my lens, right, taking lens, which I put a grid over. So any movements you made, I'd mark off exactly whatever you want to do.
So you had a sort of grid at the back.
And then I had an image of that in profile above the taking lens of the camera. So there wasn't areas where I really knew exactly where they'd have to...
That's when you started getting into the closer...
Into the closer stuff. Anything around 5 feet distance was about the minimum. Remember, this lens was like infinity to 10 feet was one complete revolution.
Right.
And then from 10 feet down to 5 feet was another revolution. So, it just kept going on. And it was a lot of travel and a lot of pulling just to go maybe, a few inches.
And that's all before remotes and electrics and all
that
that kind of stuff, all by hand.
That was that was...
Okay. Did you do any...
That was my bit,
That wasn't hand-holdable, though, presumably. You weren't doing that.
No, but he wanted to do some... I remember Full Metal, Eyes Wide Shut, he wanted to go with his lenses on Steadicam. I thought, well, it's up to you, Stanley. I never did the show. It doesn't matter. Right. I think I could go through that again. But I must admit, came out of it thinking it's a bit associated with a film like that. It was a great honour to me. And of course, John was the master of that sort of lark. He had a wonderful relationship with Stanley, and after Clockwork and Barry Lyndon and all those months he spent with him on 2001. I think John was on it nearly 3 years.
Yes.
From focus puller to model unit DP, which he spent another 2 years doing. And he's very infectious, Stanley. You can't leave him alone, You go to bed with him and wake up in the middle of the night with him. It's just one of those things that he takes you over.
Yes, I've got an idea.
Not an idea, yes, exactly, yeah. Always had ideas. And it is to him, I mean, John had a huge amount to do with it, obviously, but it is to him, the picture had that look, it is, because he would insist only on trying to get these lenses to work,
Stanley, from what I gather, was very technical and very knowledgeable.
Yes, yeah.
And very opinionated about how he wanted things to look and be done. So that must have been wonderful to work with, somebody with a clear idea of what
it gets in your face a bit at times,
Sorry?
Gets in your face a bit at times.
Okay.
Because he's by the camera all the time, you see, so you've got him in your ear all the time,
Yes.
You can't touch it off somehow. Lou had a wonderful way of amusing him, because that was always cracking jokes that Lou does. Lou Berg is my mate up there.
It's rumoured that he would phone up his artists in the middle of the night as well, and just start talking to them about an idea, partly to make sure that they turned up on set in a fragile state, so that he would get the performance out of them.
Yes. We never, at least they got to bed, we didn't, I got a note here.
Yeah.
I got here. I think I said, and I got this from Jan Harlan, that I didn't know much. All the years I was with him, the 3 films I did, I never really knew him. I mean, I was not social. I'm not that sort of guy. I'm not a snivelling, sycophantic yard dog that's, wants to break with Stan. I don't want to light his next picture. He insisted I did it. I was nervous as hell doing it. Full metal I was, And it was a documentary. I thought, well, I can do that. It's a documentary feature, But I think Jan was always like, he made movies, especially like Barry Lyndon, to get himself through a bad case of chronic social anxiety disorder. Which sort of sums him up in a way, that he's a disembodied enigma who puts his public persona really on the screen. And he's different with every film you do. He's a different character. But he has to be the man. He loves making movies. He hated not being involved. And I think Barry Lyndon was something to do between, really, Clockwork Orange and Napoleon. Had to do with costume drama, but make it the best looking film ever. Because there's nothing else about the film, really, that other than costume, design, and photography won any awards for anything else, really.
Yeah, it was a good yarn, wasn't it?
A good yarn.
A rascal who
have you tried
was
reading
probably a
it?
bit like Stanley
I think William Makepeace Thackeray is not a yarn, it's an monologue that goes on and on and on. And even he lost it halfway through writing it. He went back to it 10 years later. And I thought we'd be doing that again. I think Stanley would take another year to work it out. We had another year. He'd probably still be shooting it.
Okay. Yeah.
You're never happy with the way it ended and the way it started. And this, but basically.
Okay.
I think it would have gone on and on and on. Yeah.
I don't know whether this is a good time to talk about discipline on set, but it's one of the subjects that's been going around a bit lately. It came up at the BSC show. Nigel had a panel, and they were discussing how sets are run and how we can make better use of the time, particularly in relation to film experience, and having now digital that you've got endless amounts of material you can keep turning, you can get turning early, you don't have to worry about that aspect of it. And one of the things that often comes up is, well, in the earlier days when we were shooting on film, there was a finite amount generally, but that wasn't the only thing. I think there are ways of running a set, aren't there? and the key people on the set. How do you read that in terms of how a set gets run, and who are the key people on the set when you're working on a film?
With him or with anybody?
With him, with anybody, really. Yes. I mean, normal work as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I don't know. I mean, I was astonished how directors like to work because they don't cut the camera, and you get terabytes of bloody storage, which you then had to sift through this droll at the end of the day, and it has to sort out the bits that come together. It could be hours and hours and hours of stuff. I don't buy into that. I've made every frame count, make it, that's all you want, and that's where the cut comes when we move on from that particular point.
Yeah.
The discipline there was only that you know what every shot was in the picture. It was a composed, beautiful angle, or whatever was going. It's either very static or it's very moving. You know, so the discipline there, I think, is I can only generalize. With many directors, it's whatever.
Yes.
You know. The visual ones I'd rather not work with because, well, they seem to want to know where to put the camera, which may not always be my judgment on the angles, because it's important, because I think the operating aspect is very much the lighting aspect. I mean, you often frame a shot knowing this is where the lighting goes. And if you do sort out the shots yourselves, you know somehow where you're going to place the lamps accordingly. And if you're making it up as you go along a little bit, then it becomes a little undisciplined. And but again, you know, I quite like, you know, to ad-lib a little bit. I suppose it's. Is that getting somewhere near the answer you're looking for, or am I waffling on?
Well, I was thinking about the roles, the other roles on the film crew, particularly well, obviously the director and the first assistant director. It always seems that the cinematographer, operator, or if there's no operator but just a cinematographer, the first AD and the director have to form some kind of a definition about how they're working and stick to the hours, stick to the measure of
I don't know.
what can
do
be
you guys
done.
think? It's all different, isn't it? So many wonderful BSC members here, so I'm probably more old school in the sense I think it's changed a little bit now. So you know, I mean, Lou and I did recently. We had 36 days to shoot it, and you know, you're tied to finishing the day.
Yes.
But I quite like is I worked a lot with great DPs when I was an assistant for all those years, and everything rubs off somehow. You know, I think there's a strict code of silence and abeyance, and letting the directors have time with the performers, because it's important to me that no matter your technique or style, there's no replacement for content. You know, this is a story. I mean, that's what you're making.
Yes.
If that lacks, then it doesn't make particularly weak script make any more money. It doesn't fix it. It's beautifully photographed, in my view. In fact, I've trouble even thinking, really, apart from Barry Lyndon, what films made money that bombed at the box office. I don't know. They didn't make a nickel. Barry Lyndon went on to make money.
Yes, yeah.
It's very one of the few films that I think is, again, resplendent to particular aspects of the audience attendance, who's going to see it. And would the great British public really appreciate good photography generally if they fell over it? I don't know. Well, we still strive to achieve these levels, of course. But the discipline is trying to do that in a short space of time now, which I've sport with Kubrick, is that we did have time. And I find on longer pictures now, even when given lots of light, I don't know what to do with it all. I'd rather work with very little in a very short spell. I think I do my best work when I'm up against it, to be honest with you. So applying different ideas from people I've worked with over the years, you know? And because otherwise films tend to look a little bit the same, don't they, really? Yeah? The thing about John, you see, we used I think exteriors, he used nets, he used backlight always, and the low-con filters, and just to get an edge, so something was going to light up.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you can just play cross-hand boogie on the Da Vinci or go north light and bung in a flare or bung in a light that's going to kick. We had to make it work like that in a way, don't we? Yeah.
Well, I still get comments from colorists that if the shape of the light is there, it's a whole lot better than if you come with a flat, any old image. Oh, can you make something out of this for me?
Yes.
So I
Well,
think,
that's good.
I think
I don't often get asked that.
That is one of the disciplines.
Yeah.
The cinematographer has to engage in the shape.
If you've got the confidence
of
that
the
directly
light,
wants you to do
and
it.
the more you, for me, the closer you get it on the day, for digital, the better it'll come out at the end.
Never cease to amaze them.
Yeah. Well, film always...
But you can get it on set, can't you? I mean, you just dial in, which we did, the low, ProRes.
Yes, to an extent.
And it gives you a
you often
huge
don't have
latitude in printing and stuff, doesn't it? But we didn't have. I mean, Barry Lyndon was, I think the stock was, whatever it was, 100, doesn't matter. If you're working in 100 or 600 or 800. You still have to be more exact, I think, when you've got so little with the printers. We had, scale at rank was whatever it was, 2 stops, basically, latitude. If you work with Ektachrome or reversal stock, you had to be pretty spot on.
Yes.
That doesn't seem to worry a lot of cameramen these days. It's not, it does to a certain degree, I know. But if you're seeing immediately what you've done, and everybody else is seeing it, there's no element of surprise or whatever anymore, is there? I mean, I used to anticipate, somehow I knew what I was doing to some extent. It's like when I saw your ND, was it the NDR thing you showed us?
No, I agree. On film...
You're looking at this image of a guy looking through a window. The background's burnt up, it's a desert scene. His face is under, but you want to see the reflection maybe of what he's seeing in the cafe. Well, we used to do that knowing what we were going to get to some extent, that it wasn't going to be happening, later down the line, because I didn't. Anyway, the quasi-DOPs now, I find the DITs sometimes have a lot to linear you in terms of making it the sum of its parts holistically, which I used to like doing. I quite like getting away from binary and nits. Was it you were talking about?
Nits.
Nits, yes. Nits really do.
It's just a measure of brightness.
I know it is, but why?
But no, I don't know whether we want to move on to high dynamic range.
No, I don't think we do.
I think probably stick to your film.
I'm usually less presumptuous of having to accept a laser projector, which gives me 10 times more tones of black.
Yes.
Why would we want that?
Good question.
I mean, where does it end?
I think the jury's still out on that.
They're still out on that one.
Yes, definitely still out. But
it's whether Kubrick would make a film digitally today if he was alive.
He would go for it.
Do you think so?
Oh yes.
You know what he said to me once?
Well, he was always on the front of the curve, wasn't he?
What?
If there was some some trick to pull, he was there.
Well, I saw him about 3 months before he died, and I said to him, "Would you make Napoleon digital?" And he said, "I don't think." I said, "Well, it wasn't what I don't think so." He said, "I said, do you think it's an arm of cinematography? Do you think it's a captured Kodak moment?" He said, "No, I think he used the word buggery, electronic buggery, fueled by pixel-driven techno heads. That was a little while ago, all right? So we know that's not the case now. Whether we still think like that, I don't know." This was before he died, literally about a month before he died when I saw him. So I love it. I do like it. I love the Alexa. I thought it was a great tool. And you can play with it to and build. I mean, Lou and I created a look on a film called Bitter Harvest, which is hopefully is going to come out this year, which has a lot of candlelight interest to it. Not a lot of candles everywhere. Yeah. Just the one doing the job. You know? Interesting.
Well,
I mean, it is
800, 1600 ASA.
Exactly. I mean, and it looked bloody marvelous at even 2000, really.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah. Well, we look forward
to
seeing that. Yeah. But there is that thing about film, isn't there? That we used to film it. Yeah. You look through the viewfinder and you think, that looks good enough. Off it goes to the lab, and the next day, so often it would come back and you go like, that actually looks really
Depends
nice.
where you saw it.
I didn't think it was going to look that
good. Oh, right. No, absolutely.
And that's
it's a thrill, isn't
it? that I think in going into digital has changed a bit. That if you, in my mind, you've got to really be there all of the time. It's a bit like you've got to make it look really
absolutely.
good on the day because you're not going to get that lift on the overnight rushes run, and it's not to come back to you and you're going to go, oh, that looks even better than I thought. No, it doesn't work like that anymore. So you really do have to be on the ball at the time, I think.
Well, you're certainly on the ball of Barry Lyndon, I tell you, because, you know, not only was it a BNC, which is a bit old boat anchor, it's a big camera, you know, and there's a lot of variables in it in terms of the flange depth. You have to be absolutely, it's not rock, you're not going straight into the movement. You're going through another plate into the movement. So that plate in between has to be set exactly right, so the lens is seated absolutely at the point of focus there at the back. Then you're in business doing the front bit. But what Stanley found very difficult was the viewfinder. Because it's a BNC viewfinder full of prisms, you couldn't see anything through the viewfinder. So during shooting, we had to work out how to get a brighter viewfinder. Well, we did. Technicolor had a mirrored type viewfinder, Technicolor 3-strip camera. And Bryn Jones, who was a technician at Technicolor, we took him on, and he got, again, a Technicolor, which is mirrors, basically, and designed a viewfinder to fit the BNC so that we could see just as much through the viewfinder, with parallaxing cams cut to match, you know, auto parallax, as you could looking through the camera. Because looking through the camera, you saw wide open, a huge brightness of light. But once it was swung into the shooting position, you saw nothing, absolutely nothing.
Did you have a kind of like a side finder?
Yeah, absolutely, it was a viewfinder.
With another 50mm lens on it?
Well, we had mats cut to as you put them in. But the brightness of the mirrors gave us a lot more illumination generally, because prisms take a lot of light; they soak it up. Whereas, you know, so that had to be worked on and defined. You know, that again took. I mean, I remember the first 3 weeks of shooting, I was still testing lenses, and Old Colt was pulling focus and lighting until I was around to present, you know, these lenses being, okay, let's use them. We get into night shooting now. Should we do the candlelight stuff? Should we have a go at it? Basically.
We should have some questions. Okay, shout up loudly. Any questions out there? Here we are, Mr. Gavin there.
Hi, you mentioned that Stanley was on the camera a bit. I think you had Ronnie Taylor and Mike Malloy operating, didn't you, on Barry Lyndon?
Yes.
How involved was Stanley on the day-to-day cinematography? I mean, was he on the camera all the time, or how involved was he, apart from directing the actors?
I think, Gavin, with the video assist stuff, we had no video assist, there was no playback. And he wanted to be sure what he was seeing through this viewfinder, like the 3-strip one, which was quite clear. So he did mostly. It wasn't, when you say operating, he had a geared head, but he didn't move it much. I mean, you know, it's one of those jobs, isn't it? I don't think he quite got that together. Now, Mike was there, true. Ronnie was only for the Irish bit, and then we went back with a smaller unit, much smaller unit, which, yes, Mike Malloy was there. For the exterior stuff, we did, you know, on location, but all the candlelit stuff Stanley operated, because he had to know what he was getting through the viewfinder. And providing the viewfinder was in the right place, at the right distance, it was usually some similar composition to what you'd find if you had a reflex image of it all, you know. So just, yes, it was him. And he did handheld stuff. Kubrick did a lot. I remember Clockwork Orange, Lou might bear me out here. I wasn't on it, but he did a huge amount of handheld stuff himself. He was very good with handheld. But a lot of battle stuff we did with Stanley operating. So I would say he operated most of the film, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I thought there wasn't.
Yeah.
He had his own 2C, didn't he?
Yes, yes. And he wore his rather large shoes, so he didn't actually lift his feet, he shuffled with them, you know, and so he could actually, it was quite smooth. It was often the 980 used a lot of, to the Kinoptic one, do you remember that thing? Which had a false front, so he managed to not, it didn't bow, it wasn't no barrel distortion on it. It was amazing bloody lens, actually. He used a lot of. And now, I must admit, we did use the 10mm a lot on this last shoot, which was a Zeiss, whatever it is, T2, but that's got the Astron front to it. It was an amazingly level camera. And I know that Emmanuel Lubetsky used it quite a lot on this last job too. So yes, he did have control over the optic, but he didn't trust anybody really to do anything. He couldn't. I mean, unless there was a formula for keeping it sharp, which he would have done, he would have done that himself too. But so I had to be there for that. Otherwise, I'd have been sort of, standing on the sidelines while he did it all. He'd love to do it all himself. He was, a master at almost everything. But yes.
Any more questions out there?
Did you finish?
Can you wait for the microphone, please?
Microphone coming round?
So with the...
1, 2, 1, 2. All right.
Yeah.
Were the lenses always used wide open, and were they somehow designed to be at their best like that, or did you sometimes have so much candlelight that you could stop down a bit?
Never. There could have been. They probably could have stopped down, but but when you did, it became like any other Zeiss lens. It becomes sharp, and it's. I'm not saying it wasn't in focus, but it had that sort of prosaic, sort of oil painting look, which even at the point of focus, it was not snapping at you. It was never bit you. It never was pin. So yes, though all the candlelight stuff was shot wide open, but outside, no, we shot, of course, I think the big interiors were around there about with Zeiss regular lenses, Distagon planar lenses were shot, the early Zeiss lenses, which were all scaled metric. We had nothing transferred into feet and inches, so I had to do all that with me, because I couldn't think metric. 60 meters to me, it doesn't say 2 foot. It's quite. So they were all shot using primes and NDs and everything else. So, but largely working around f4 on exteriors most of the time. Yeah.
Well, hello. And in the cases where you could have stopped down, did you have so much candlelight that you had to ND to stay at?
No, we didn't have so much candlelight, right. Not at all, no. In fact, what it was, and I'm saying this, I think a lot of the faces were burnt out, to be honest with you, on the set, which was normal for that. I think that's what's so nice, that the overexposure, not washed out, but overexposed. The flesh tones were bright, if you see for yourself. Where the rest just sort of tapered off to nothing very nearly. So there was always exposure in some way. You saw the beautiful interiors, everything you looked at was recorded. It was there, immortalized. So yes, always 7.0. Everything was at 7.0. I wish it had stopped down, because it gave me a bit of a break, because we did tracking shots fine when you got that confident. We nailed it. It was getting more adventurous and tracking. Can you imagine? Tracking 0.70 on a 50. But we winged it and had to go with it. You had to be absolutely sure it was right. I mean, you can't get replay. You have to wait. And I remember one day I was completely one revolution out on the lens. And I rang Peter Barth at Humphreys and said, "How was it?" He said, "How was what?" He said, "What was that you were doing?" I said, "Well, that was a shot of Brian." I know. He said, "He looked like blancmange. He was just ectoplasm. You couldn't see a thing but this blob." And that was one revolution completely out. Somewhere near it being in focus would have made but that's the tolerance it had. So I did screw up a couple of times. That's true, I did, yeah. But he was very forbearing.
Do you, microphone, please?
1, 2, 1, 2. And I understand we're going to watch it digitally projected. Do you know anything about the transfer process? Are we looking at a scan of a print or of the...
I don't know. The 60p, I don't know. I meant to ask. I didn't really want it to be remastered or digitized. I'd like to think something 41 years old would still, apart from being restored and correctly timed, it should still be basically the way it was when we saw it in the 70s. I don't want enhanced quality. I don't want to see saturated colors, chrome up, contrast down. I don't think it's not that sort of film, So I'll wait to see. But when we saw it in Ireland last March, it looked just as I recall. And, because I've only seen it, 3 times, I think, my entire life. And a lot of these films, I mean, I don't know whether you guys, but it never really realized any critical acclaim as such. It was much of his work is suddenly realised later as maybe not heralded as a masterpiece, but something more interesting to say. And you know, what was I going to say? What was the question?
I think it's a question.
Have I?
Nigel, do we need to stop now and have a...
We're going to have a couple of questions.
Okay.
Sorry, getting blinded by that light.
Testing? Hello.
Yeah.
Hi. So I'm just wondering, how many setups would you usually have a day, and how much time did you get to take the time to set those up, and how many takes would you have usually in those interior shots with the candlelight scenes?
Well, this is the thing. If you're seeing a scene, and I'll tell you how long it took to shoot it, you know. But generally speaking, it took maybe 1 day to do each setup. Yeah.
Oh, so it's 1 day per setup?
Yeah. With getting in there. Well, I mean, with the candlelight stuff. No, on the exteriors we used to march on and maybe do half a dozen. I don't know. But he was very positive, and everything was approached very slowly in terms of what you were going to capture. And the actors he rehearsed well with. That took a lot of time with Stanley. He always felt that they should know the meaning behind the words rather than just saying them, right? So he spent a lot of time with them until it was perfect, then he'd shoot it. And the light was right too, you know. But we did shoot up and down in all weathers in Ireland. It was, you know, and trying to blend those seamlessly into a consistent look was, again, half the battle, you know, soaking the sun off when it came out and taking those away and changing filters all the time. So he did do a lot of takes on exteriors, he did, yeah. He would just spend a day largely on the candlelight stuff doing one scene, perhaps, yeah. Yeah, depends on the size of it, of course, yeah. Is that right, Lou? Yeah. About a day? So you divide 18 months into days, you average about 3 shots a week. But that was easy. The easiest part was when we were shooting. I was talking about it, which takes so long, you know. It's sort of paralysis analysis. You don't really get on with it. Let's go, you know. And when you get a very wordy novel like Makepeace Thackeray's story, you know, it's you know, he transferred that into an amazing collection of images, which is, I still think is the capture of one single piece of celluloid is amazing at the time. That it didn't matter. Whatever it took was perfectly right, you know. When you think it was $11 million budget at the time, it's probably quite a lot. Every nickel of that, every dollar is on the screen. I mean, it is, you know. So you don't always evaluate time and money with him. His budgets never went very big. He kept it well within the money he was given by Warner's to make a movie. None of his films went madly over budget. I don't think any of them did. Full Metal was like $3 million under budget, you know, although it took 9 months to shoot. 27 weeks, to be honest with you. And on The Shining, when John left to move to America, we were literally had another 7 weeks of shooting. I took it over as a DP focus puller, right? So I finished the movie off several weeks, principal photography. This is the connection you have with a man like him, you know? If you do it and he likes you, you know, BS, you get on with it. Yeah, it's a love story. You just, you know, you're his son. I was his son. I think the son he never had, you know. So I could do no wrong really with Stanley, although, you know, I wasn't audacious and unbelievably cocky with it. That's another thing. He liked the British modesty because he never worked in the States since 1960. He never went back to America. Right. He was over here all the time doing clockwork and all the way time.
So do you think the Shining finished then when the set got burnt? When the set burnt down?
Yes, when the set burnt down. Yes.
No,
told Star Wars you can have the
when it burnt down.
Yes,
had the sad accident. Rumours about it.
I'm never quite sure what caused that to happen.
Okay, we have time for one more question. Here we are.
Yeah, I was just wondering, with these more difficult shots, such as the candlelit and the tracking shots, for example, how much would have been tested in advance or pre-shot? Would Stanley have perhaps done that on his own, seeing as he likes to do that? Or would you going in with your fingers crossed?
Oh, no, never, no. No, I don't. It was always pedantic, really, attention to detail. Joe's been crazy, you know. I just want to get on with it. But I mean, there are other things too. He also got another zoom, which is I forget who made. I don't think it was Asian, though. But it was a 16 mil 20:1, which is 15 to a 300. Which he wanted to use for a lot of these very slow, dreary pullbacks, which you'll see in the movie, which do go on a bit. But they kind of work because with Ed DiGiulio again.
Yes.
John Buckley might have known Ed, I don't know. But
yes.
Put a 1.6 doubler on the back, not quite 2 stops, which made the lens 24 to a 480. And with the J4 CDP zoom control, it was so beautifully mastered that you never knew it was moving. You could barely see it moving. And these wonderful shots looked like it was maybe done from an aerial position, you know, with tracking back. Over narration, of course, because a lot of voiceover with the movie. But that's what I found. You're not aware of anything mechanical going on, you know, it sort of blends into the scene. So that was something else that he thought up. So all this takes time to prepare and use and blah, 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 you know? So you don't wing it with him. No, you don't, no. I think he may have done on Clockwork Orange with I don't know, Lumo. I was on the movie, I don't know.
Yeah, those 20:1 zooms are quite a signature, aren't they?
And of course it fitted just about cover the 185 aperture. It did vignette a little on the 25 end of it.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I know. But he also had another lens, which was a lunar telescope called the Questar, which we fitted on a 16 mil camera, which was a 1600 millimeter lens you could double to 3200 millimeters. It was T64. I remember taking it to Africa. He lent it to me because we were doing a picture in Africa. And I lent it to Simon, the second unit safari chap who does all this photography, and he got a bloody award for using it. Got the most amazing close-up to these islands. He said, well, half a mile away somewhere. It went on to Barlow power. I don't even remember. You could actually double it again because it was a telescope. So we had that as well. I mean, we had 77 lenses, Kubrick. All fitting different cameras, 3 2Cs, an IMO, 2 BNCs, 2 BLs, a wealth of cameras, which I kept service for him all the time. So that was on 3 or 4 months prior to shooting, you know, getting it all ready, because it would be in a warehouse for 4 years until he did something else with it. There's long gaps between the films, often about 4 years. So I wasn't hanging around, you know, holding my breath waiting for the next. But I was always keen to get back, have it that way. I was.
Yes, to get back on
After
set.
20-odd years as a focus lad, I was still keen to work with him in that capacity. So I was more than thrilled to get asked to do Full Metal Jacket.
Right.
I was asked to actually do Eyes Wide Shut too, but I wasn't available.
I think, thank you very much.
Have we done it?
Very good.
1 second. I want to thank Doug Milsome very much for imparting this memories of 40 years ago to us. We're going to...
Thank you very much.